How to Paint a Vintage Pumpkin Truck by Tracy from Step by Step Painting. We're going to start out with a 3/4 inch flat brush, and on my palette I have titanium white and carbon black. I'm going to wet my brush and pat dry. You want the brush wet but not dripping wet. Grab your titanium white, get a big glop of it, and dip the corner in carbon black. Then you're going to paint up and down strokes. What's going to happen is the white and black will blend together, but not all the way. We want it to look kind of streaky, kind of smooth. Don't use too much black. When you reapply the paint, make sure you're only grabbing just a little dot of black on the corner each time. Paint up and down strokes. You don't want to overwork it because then it's going to turn solid gray. We want this to look kind of like a gray washed background. So keep applying those vertical strokes all across your canvas. On the bottom, leave about 3 finger widths of space. So don't paint all the way down. So see on the bottom about 3 finger widths of space. That's what I want to leave because the bottom part is going to be the ground and we're going to paint a different direction when we get to that step. So this is going fast. As always, press pause when you need to. And then also notice the inconsistencies with that black. So there's some areas where it's more concentrated, some areas where it's less concentrated. You don't need it to be a pattern or anything like black, white, just kind of go with the flow here. These two colors blend beautifully together in this sort of technique, and yours will look a little different from mine, and everyone's will look different. If you need to, go ahead and paint the sides as you're doing this. I did not paint the sides. Go over any strokes that seem kind of open where you see the canvas below. Just make sure that the paint completely covers all of the canvas. Next, I'm going to use a T-square ruler. I'm going to measure my about 3 fingers width, and I want to use that ruler to help me make a crisp horizon line. So I'm doing the same technique with the black and white, but I'm going horizontal instead of vertical. And it's slightly darker, meaning that I grabbed slightly more black than I did with the background, just so this horizontal ground would stand out a little bit. This T-square is very handy for this step because it gives you a nice crisp horizon line. And there were some marks made from that ruler, and I'm just going to gently go over them so they're not even noticeable. Okay, we are done with the background, and you need to wait for it to completely dry. So take a break, wait for it to dry. Print out your printable template while you're waiting for it to dry. This template is on my website. You can download it, print it on normal size paper. You don't have to enlarge it or anything like that if you're using an 11 inch by 14 inch canvas. So I have traceable paper underneath my traceable. And I'm going to line, look at where the truck is. So it's exactly in the center, and then the bottom edge is lined up to the bottom edge of the canvas. and I'm using a drawing pencil and I'm pressing firmly so that the image will be traced on the other side. Take your time with this step, especially where the circles are of the wheels. Really get all those lines traced. I know this is a little tedious, but it'll be very helpful when painting your truck in. So I traced it, and there's my drawing. Next, I'm going to get my paint colors I'm going to use for my truck ready. I have Cobalt Turquoise Hue. I have Titan Buff, which is like a unbleached titanium white. I have Carbon Black, and I have titanium white. I have a 1/4 inch flat brush, and you see that I dipped it in the turquoise and I dipped the corner in the white. Okay, so just like we did the background, but I dipped in the turquoise and just the corner in the white. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to let these colors blend together on the canvas. I'm going to start with the fenders, and I'm just going to kind of contour this stroke and let it flow, and let those colors blend beautifully together. Cobalt Turquoise Hue, that is the name of this color. It is very much like a phthalo turquoise if you're substituting, if you're not using the DecoArt Americana premiums. So see how the colors are just kind of blending together. I'm not overworking it. I don't want it to be a solid color. The white and the turquoise, I just want them to kind of blend together. For this fender on the right, I actually grabbed a little bit more white. But again, the same concept, dipping it in the cobalt turquoise and dipping the corner in the white, letting it blend together, letting your strokes go with the shape of that area of the vehicle. Next, I'm going to start working on the rest of the area of the truck. So I'm going to kind of cut in where the truck bed is. And this particular area, I'm actually going to use more turquoise and less white because I want this to stand out. So the fender area is kind of brighter. Right here, I'm just grabbing turquoise. Do you see how the dark and the light? If I'm using less white here so that it stands out. And then again, whatever shape that you're painting in, it goes with the shape. So if it curves, the stroke is going to curve. If it's straight, the stroke is going to kind of go straight. I'm going to do this straight cut in line here on the bottom. This flat brush really helps for this step because you can turn it and use the tip, the chisel of the brush to get a sharper stroke. And then you can press firmer when you do the curved stroke. So to get the contrast right here, my fender is darker on the left. I'm just going to grab a little more white to make that stand out against the fender. And I'm just going to follow the shape of this vehicle. At this point, I'm just grabbing different variations of white and turquoise on my brush, letting the colors decide what they're going to be. I did do a little bit more white where the top edge of the truck bed is, to give that a little more contrast. So to define some of these shapes on the truck, like the fenders, the truck bed, you'll see in a second. For the door, use a different shade of that turquoise, so more white, different tint actually, more white or less white to define the shape. And then for the door, I'm going to do all up and down strokes, a little more white than any of the other areas of the truck. So this is a brighter area. So little up and down strokes. I like how that white doesn't blend all the way. It kind of makes it look rustic, vintage. Then pay attention to the shape of the door. Even though there's no outlining going on, my strokes kind of want to stay the same way just in the area of the door. And then you could kind of cut in, like almost outline the shape of the door by painting it with your brush. So I'm just going to kind of apply a second coat where needed, where the gray is still showing through. Make sure that it's all pretty much solid and covered up. Kind of define this window a little bit more. A little bit more white over on the fenders. I like how that white kind of gives a little bit of a glare. Maybe it's too, if you do that and the white is too overwhelming, you could always just grab turquoise real quick and go over it. Okay, so next I'm going to do the tires. I completely rinsed my brush and I'm still using the 1/4 inch flat, and this color is Titan Buff. And I'm going to lose the circle that's inside of this circle from the drawing, and that's okay. I'm just going to paint a good solid coat of this color on the tire. So same thing on the other side. Then as much as I want to go ahead and add the other details in the tire, I cannot until that dries. You can use a T-square ruler to see if your wheels are lined up. I think the one on the left is a little bit off. They should be lined up if you did the tracing right, but mine were slightly off. Okay, I'm going to do some outlining with my truck. This is a very tiny 5-0 round brush. You can use a liner brush, so the smallest round brush that you have for this step, and a good steady hand. And I'm using carbon black to kind of, I did the door handle, and then I'm going to go in and outline. I'm not going to outline everything on this truck, just some areas that I want to stand out. Starting with the inside of the window frame. If you need your black to flow a little bit higher, you can add just a tiny bit of water to the black on your palette. So dip your brush in the water and just kind of add the water from the brush to the color and just kind of mix it up a little bit just to water it down slightly. You don't want it to be too watery because we don't want it to be dripping. But that kind of helps with the flow. And then I'm going to outline just the bottom part of this fender here. Same thing over here on the left. The bottom inside of the fender. I'm going to outline the top of the truck bed, actually the bottom line that's right below the top of the truck bed. And then this bottom line that connects the two fenders together, very bottom line under the truck. Then I'm going to outline this bottom part of the door a little bit up here. A little bit up here, and then I'm going to go down. It's kind of tempting to want to outline everything, but doing so would make this look less like a painting and more like a coloring book, and I didn't want that. But there are areas that need to be darker, so just picking certain areas to outline and not all the areas kind of creates that effect. Notice how I painted the back exhaust solid black and this back vertical line and just a little bit on the top of the truck bed. Okay, my wheels are dry. I'm going to go back to that 1/4 inch flat brush and paint a circle inside of the circle. And I am kind of the same way about painting circles. It's something about it. You just want it to make it look perfect. Just do the best you can. It's not going to look perfect when you're looking at it up close, but looking at it far away, it looks okay. So just use that 1/4 inch flat to just carefully paint in that circle. It kind of helps to look at the traceable to kind of see the sizing of the circle. Or if you're really kind of intimidated by this step, you can always find a small circle in your house, maybe a glue cap or a paint cap. Trace that to see if it works, if you can get a nice circle inside of a circle. Try to make them as even as possible. Then I have my tiny brush back, and I'm just gonna outline the bottom of the tires. Then I grabbed my 1/4 inch flat brush back. I'm going to do a shadow underneath the tires. So I'm mixing black and white together. I don't know the exact proportions, just about equal amounts to make kind of a dark gray color, a little bit watered down. I'm going to do the reflection shadow under the tires. I'm going to start by kind of curving below and then doing zigzag lines left and right. They start out thick to kind of form a curve, and then they get thinner as you work your way down and then off the canvas. So do that on the left as well. Kind of curve them right under that circle and just kind of fade them down. I'm forming more of a circular shape. And then on the very bottom of the canvas, there would be a little bit of shadow where the rest of the body of the truck is. And then, of course, if you painted over part of your tire with the shadow color, you can always go back with the Titan buff and just kind of fix that up a little bit. Next, I'm going to grab any of my brushes and I'm going to use the back part of the handle to stamp 2 little white dots on the middle part of the tire. So dip it in titanium white and do 1 stamp and 2 stamp. Okay, our tires are done. Next, we're going to tackle this pumpkin. I have Cadmium Orange Hue, Cadmium Red Hue, and I'm going to put some fresh titanium white on my palette. I'm also going to use that 1/4 inch flat brush for my pumpkin. Make sure all the other excess colors are off of your brush. Okay. We're going to dip it in white first. And I'm not going to do the corner thing. I'm just going to double load by adding orange too. Okay, so there's orange and white on my brush. I'm going to start by doing the 2 back bumps. So the pumpkin's already drawn for you. I'm just going to do the back bumps. So we're working our way from the back, and then we're going to work our way towards the middle, 1 bump at a time. So I'm going to do this bump. So that white kind of gives me a nice, almost sort of 3D look going on. I reloaded with more orange, and I'm going to do this bump. So that had more orange on my brush, so it kind of stands out against that other one that had more white. For this bump, I wanted to incorporate some of the red in there, so I grabbed red and orange for these bumps. But if you don't like the red, you don't have to do the red. You can just do the orange and the white. Kind of did a little experimenting here. And then for the middle part, I wanted more white. So it's kind of that concept with the contrast. We want to grab more white to make it stand out against some of the other colors. I'm going to go back and just kind of restroke some of my bumps here. A word of caution here as I kind of mess up my pumpkin a little bit. The more you work it, the more it's just going to kind of blend together and make all one solid color. So I don't recommend doing that. Back to my tiny brush, the part where I'm going to outline the truck up here with just the turquoise, because where I painted over it, just going to kind of touch that up a bit. Then I'm going to use the carbon black to paint my stem of the pumpkin. You can do this brown if you want it to be brown. I liked the look of it being black. It kind of matched with the background, the whole black and white theme of this painting with just the truck and the fall colors popping. So that's why I chose to do a black stem. But you can do it brown, and then you could do some green vines if you want. And then you don't have to follow the vines that are on the drawing. You can kind of go your own way. So for the lines, I'm going to just kind of go off of what was on the drawing. You should still be able to see them at this point. I'm going to kind of go almost all the way down with those lines, but not exactly all the way down. And then over here on the right, I grabbed orange instead of black. Just a random choice that I made. That happens. Okay, I'm gonna do this tree next. I have a completely rinsed 1/4 inch flat brush, and I'm gonna make a dark gray. So about equal parts black and white. You essentially want a pretty dark gray. It's got to be darker than the background. If it's not darker than the background, we're not going to see it. So if you're painting your tree right now and it's not showing because your background's dark, then you may have to use a black to get it to really stand out. Start with the tree trunk, and it's thicker at the bottom and it kind of gets thinner as you work your way up. I'm adding just a tad bit of water to my palette here to kind of make this flow. And it's slightly, the truck is slightly overlapping part of that tree. So I don't see the whole base of the tree. It's going behind the truck. I'm gonna go about halfway up the canvas, and I'm gonna kind of start doing branches. The beauty of using this flat brush is I can twist it, and as it happens, my branch can get thinner. So I'm using just the chisel, the tip of my brush on its side to do these branches. And they each stem off, making the letter Y. So I'm going to kind of loosely hold my brush as I flow some of these strokes. Some of the branches are thicker towards the middle part of the trunk, and of course they get thinner as they go out. To make it go to more of a point, you hold your brush lighter. So you start out thick, you're holding your brush firmer, and then you kind of twist your brush, and then you hold it lighter as it gets thin towards the edge. And then for the even smaller, finer brushes, I grabbed my tiny round brush. I'm just going to do even smaller little letter Ys that are kind of wisping off of these branches. You can add as many branches as you want. Just don't go too crazy because we are going to be doing a lot of leaves, and a lot of these branches may not be showing after we do the leaves. Or if you want to not do the leaves, you can actually leave the painting like this without leaves on it, with just a bare tree. I kind of extend some of these branches. I like how they flow in a sort of curvy, almost spooky like fashion. And then for the shadow, I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the tires. Use that 1/4 inch flat brush, water it down slightly, and follow the shape of the shadow. So I'm doing the zigzag motion with the brush, using the chisel, the tip of the brush, the full width of it, and moving it side by side, forming a rectangle, and the rectangle goes off the canvas. Okay, for the leaves, I have a number 8 round brush. This is the first time using this round brush in this painting, but I grabbed it because I want to use the tip of it to make little dots. The dot colors I'm using are Cadmium Orange Hue, Cadmium Red, and I'm actually also going to use Titan Buff. So that cream color that we used in the wheels, that color is going to show up in the leaves as well. All I'm doing is using the very tip of this round brush to make little dots everywhere. The dots don't even have to be touching the branches. They can be floating on them by themselves. And I'm not rinsing my brush between colors. I'm grabbing orange and doing dots of orange, and then I'm grabbing red and doing dots of red. And actually some of these leaves are flying off the tree. That Titan Buff kind of gives a new pretty color when it blends with the orange and red that are not rinsed on the brush. This part of the painting, I love painting leaves and just doing dots because you really can just get into this zen and not even think about what you're doing, and it just turns into this beautiful tree. So keep going. I wouldn't cover this whole area completely 100% solid because we want, I don't want to lose those branches. I still want them to show. And then of course there should be leaves on the ground. If they're falling off the tree, in theory, there would be some on the ground. And also it gives some nice pop of color in this, on the bottom area of our painting. So just little clusters of leaves on the bottom, different areas on the bottom. I'm going to paint this window in with that 1/4 inch flat brush and titanium white, but I'm not going to make it 100% solid. I'm going to do vertical strokes, almost kind of translucent. And this is the last step in this painting. I had a lot of fun with this truck. I've been wanting to do a vintage truck for over a year now, and I just couldn't get the idea down until now. So I'm very excited about this. I hope you enjoyed painting this, and can't wait to see your paintings as well. Thanks for watching.